Every morning, millions of people over 60 crack open an egg and wonder the same thing. Is this actually good for me? For years, many of us were told to worry about eggs because of cholesterol. So people started avoiding the yolk, choosing egg whites, or cutting eggs out altogether. But here's the part that's often missed. The egg itself may not be the biggest problem. There are other mistakes people make with eggs that can affect the overall nutritional value of the meal, and some of them become especially important as you get older. One mistake has to do with how you cook your eggs. Another involves what you put on the plate with them. And one mistake is surprisingly easy to make without even realizing you're doing it. So if you eat eggs regularly, don't skip this list. Because by the end of this video, you'll know 7 common egg mistakes to avoid after 60, and what to do instead. And make sure you stay until number 7, because it's one of the easiest mistakes to overlook. If you want health information explained in plain language, without unnecessary drama or sugarcoating, subscribe and tap the like button. We're working toward 200,000 subscribers, and your support can genuinely help us get there. Now, let's clear up one important thing. Eggs are not automatically the enemy after 60. In many cases, the bigger issue isn't the egg itself. It's how you prepare it, what you eat with it, and the overall meal you're creating. And that's good news. Because these are mistakes you can actually change. But why do they matter more as you get older? Because your body doesn't process food exactly the same way it did at 30. As we age, our muscles gradually become less responsive to the protein signals that help build and repair muscle. Researchers call this anabolic resistance. Your digestive system can also change with age, and some older adults may have more difficulty absorbing certain nutrients, including vitamin B12 and iron. And kidney function naturally tends to decline with age, although that doesn't mean every older adult has kidney disease or needs to avoid specific foods. So the goal isn't to become afraid of food, it's to understand what your body may need differently. Now, and eggs are interesting because they're a nutrient-dense food that can fit very well into a healthy diet. But the way you prepare and combine them can make a big difference. So let's start with mistake #1. Because this first one has almost nothing to do with cholesterol, and is something many people do without giving it a second thought. Now let's get into the 7 big mistakes, and I'll explain not just what they look like, but why they matter inside your body. Mistake #1, making breakfast too low in protein. This is one of the most common problems I see in discussions about healthy aging. You might have toast, cereal, fruit, or coffee for breakfast, eat a fairly light lunch, and then have most of your protein at dinner. The problem isn't that protein at dinner is bad. The problem is that you may be leaving your muscles waiting all day for a meaningful protein-rich meal. As we get older, our muscles become somewhat less responsive to the muscle building effects of protein. This is part of what researchers call anabolic resistance. That's one reason many experts recommend that older adults pay attention not only to their total protein for the day, but also to getting a meaningful amount at each main meal. A commonly discussed target is around 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein per meal. Although the exact amount depends on your body size, health, activity level, and total daily intake. And here's where eggs come in. One large egg provides roughly 6 grams of protein. So 3 eggs give you about 18 grams. A good start, but not necessarily enough by themselves to reach that 25 to 30 gram range. That's why the smarter approach isn't simply eat 3 eggs. It's to build a breakfast around the eggs. For example, you could combine eggs with Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, milk, or another protein rich food that fits your diet. The bigger lesson is this. Don't save almost all of your protein for dinner. Spreading meaningful amounts of protein across your meals may make it easier to reach your daily protein needs and support the muscle you're trying to preserve as you age. And this matters because muscle isn't just about looking strong. It's part of what helps you stand up, climb stairs, maintain balance, and recover from illness or injury. So if your breakfast is mostly carbohydrates with very little protein, that's the first habit worth looking at. But there's another egg mistake that has nothing to do with how much protein you're getting. It's about what you're actually doing to the egg before it reaches your plate. Mistake #2. Throwing away the yolk. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make after years of hearing that the yolk is the bad part of the egg. But the yolk isn't just where the cholesterol is. It's also where you'll find many of the egg's most valuable nutrients. Take choline. For example, your body uses choline for several important functions, including maintaining cell structure and producing acetylcholine, a chemical messenger involved in memory, muscle control, and other functions. And the yolk is one of the richest sources of choline in an ordinary diet. The yolk also contains lutein and zeaxanthin, two antioxidant compounds that are concentrated in the retina and are important for eye health. So when you automatically separate the yolk and throw it away, you're not simply removing cholesterol, you're also removing many of the nutrients that make an egg nutritionally valuable. Now, does that mean everyone should eat unlimited egg yolks? No. If your doctor has specifically recommended limiting dietary cholesterol because of your individual health situation, follow that advice. But for many healthy adults, automatically treating every yolk like it's dangerous is an outdated way to think about eggs. And that brings us to mistake #3. Because sometimes the biggest problem isn't what's inside the egg, it's what's sitting right beside it. Mistake #3. Turning a healthy egg into an unhealthy meal. Picture a breakfast with 2 eggs, 3 strips of bacon, and several slices of white toast. Then ask yourself, is the egg really the biggest concern on that plate? This is where the conversation about eggs gets more complicated. For most people, dietary cholesterol can affect blood cholesterol. But the effect varies from person to person, and saturated fat can have a substantial impact on LDL cholesterol, the type of cholesterol associated with cardiovascular risk. That means looking at the entire meal matters. 2 eggs served with vegetables and whole grain toast are a very different meal from 2 eggs surrounded by processed meat, refined carbohydrates, and a large amount of added fat. And processed meats deserve particular attention. Bacon, sausage, and similar foods can contribute significant amounts of sodium and saturated fat. And regular consumption of processed meat has been associated with higher cardiovascular and other health risks. So the lesson isn't eggs are good and bacon is bad. It's much simpler than that. Don't judge the egg in isolation. Judge the whole plate. Because you could spend years worrying about the cholesterol in the egg while overlooking the much bigger nutritional picture sitting right beside it. And now we're getting to a mistake that has nothing to do with bacon, cholesterol, or even what you eat with your eggs. It has to do with how you cook them. Mistake #4. Treating egg storage and food safety casually. This mistake has nothing to do with cholesterol. It's about something much more basic. Food safety. As we get older, the consequences of some foodborne infections can become more serious, particularly for adults over 65 and people with weakened immune systems. That's why an egg that has been handled improperly isn't something to take lightly. Think about the simple mistakes: leaving eggs sitting out for hours, storing them improperly, using cracked or dirty eggs, or eating undercooked eggs when you're in a higher risk group for foodborne illness. And here's something important. A contaminated egg may look, smell, and taste completely normal. You can't reliably use your senses to tell whether an egg contains harmful bacteria. That's why proper storage and cooking matter so much. Keep eggs refrigerated. Follow the storage instructions on the carton. Avoid leaving them at room temperature for extended periods. And if you're at higher risk for severe foodborne illness, talk with your healthcare professional about whether you should choose fully cooked eggs. Because food safety isn't about being paranoid. It's about removing an unnecessary risk. And now let's move from what's on the egg to what's around it. Mistake #5. Building a low-fiber breakfast around your eggs. Here's where the conversation gets interesting. Eggs are naturally very low in carbohydrates. So the egg itself isn't the food that's going to send your blood sugar soaring. The bigger issue is what you build around it. Imagine two breakfasts. The first is eggs with white toast and a sugary coffee. The second is eggs with vegetables, beans, or a serving of whole grain toast. Those meals may contain the same eggs, but they're not nutritionally identical. Foods that provide fiber can slow digestion and help produce a steadier rise in blood glucose after a meal. And because insulin sensitivity often changes as we get older, building meals around protein, fiber, and minimally processed foods becomes increasingly important. You don't have to eliminate bread. You don't have to fear carbohydrates. And you certainly don't have to stop eating eggs. Instead, think about what else is on the fork. Add vegetables. Choose whole grains more often. Include beans when they fit your diet. And be mindful of sugary drinks that can turn an otherwise balanced breakfast into a very different meal. The lesson is simple. Don't just ask, are eggs healthy? You ask, what kind of breakfast am I building around them? Because the same two eggs can be part of a very different meal depending on everything else you put on that plate. And there's still one major mistake we haven't talked about. This next one is especially important if you have high cholesterol, diabetes, or a history of heart or kidney problems. Mistake #6, ignoring your kidney health when increasing protein. This mistake is especially important if you've started eating more protein because you're trying to protect your muscle as you get older. Eggs are an excellent source of high-quality protein. So it can be tempting to think, if some protein is good, more must be better. But that's not necessarily true. If your kidneys are healthy, eggs can absolutely be part of a protein-rich diet. The situation becomes different if you have chronic kidney disease or reduced kidney function. Your kidneys help remove waste products produced when your body processes protein. When kidney function is significantly reduced, the amount and type of protein that is appropriate can become more individualized. And here's the important part. You may not know that your kidney function is reduced unless you've had it checked. One commonly used measure is called eGFR, which estimates how well your kidneys are filtering your blood. Now, don't panic when you hear that number. eGFR tends to decline with age. And a lower number doesn't automatically mean you have kidney disease. But if you're over 60, especially if you have diabetes, high blood pressure, or other kidney risk factors, knowing your kidney function can give you useful information before dramatically increasing your protein intake. So the lesson isn't don't eat eggs because they contain protein. It's match your protein intake to your individual health situation. If you have known kidney disease, ask your healthcare professional how much protein is appropriate for you before following a high-protein diet. And now we've reached the final mistake. It's the one that brings us all the way back to the beginning. Mistake #7, giving up eggs entirely because you're afraid of cholesterol. Think about what we've covered. You've learned that the yolk contains important nutrients. You've learned that the rest of the plate matters. You've learned that food safety matters. You've learned that your protein needs and kidney health are individual. So here's the question. Are you still avoiding eggs simply because someone once told you that eggs are bad for your cholesterol? If so, it may be time to look at the bigger picture. Eggs do contain dietary cholesterol. And for some people, particularly those with certain health conditions or elevated LDL cholesterol, dietary choices may need to be more carefully managed. But dietary cholesterol is only one part of the picture. The overall quality of your diet, your saturated fat intake, your activity level, your body weight, your medical history, and your individual cholesterol levels all matter. That's why your own health information is much more useful than a blanket rule that says eggs are bad. If you regularly eat eggs, talk with your healthcare professional about your cholesterol numbers and your overall cardiovascular risk. Because the goal isn't to fear the yolk. And it isn't to eat unlimited eggs either. The goal is to understand how eggs fit into your own diet and your own health. And for many older adults, that can mean keeping eggs on the menu while being smarter about portion size, preparation, food safety, and what goes alongside them. That's a much more useful conversation than simply asking, are eggs good or bad? Because the real answer is it depends on the person, the portion, and the plate. Now, let's make this practical. Start by making breakfast more protein-rich. 2 or 3 eggs are a good start, but 3 eggs provide about 18 grams of protein. So you can add Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or another protein source if needed. Keep the yolk. It contains important nutrients like choline, lutein, and zeaxanthin. If you have high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes, or another health condition, discuss your overall diet with your healthcare professional. Next, look at what's beside your eggs. Instead of bacon and sausage every morning, try vegetables, beans, fruit, or whole grains. And don't forget, food safety. Keep eggs refrigerated and cook them thoroughly if you're at higher risk for foodborne illness. If you're planning to significantly increase your protein intake, especially with kidney problems or other health conditions, ask your healthcare professional whether checking your eGFR makes sense. Finally, don't judge eggs based on outdated rules. Look at your actual cholesterol levels, medical history, and overall diet, because eggs were never the whole story. It's not just about the egg. It's about the portion, the preparation, the plate, and your individual health. So which do you prefer, whole eggs or egg whites? Tell me in the comments. And if this video helped you understand eggs more clearly, subscribe and tap like. Make your health decisions based on better information, not outdated fear.